What's going on, guys? So I'm here to talk to you about Vinland Saga chapter 188, and this one focuses primarily on Hild, which is really cool because it's been a long time since we've had a Hild chapter. I think she's a great character, but she hasn't really done a whole lot since they've reached the Vinland continent, and I like that this chapter is focusing on her. Also, I'm thinking back to the last chapter, how it focused primarily on Big Eyes, the other Thorfinn, and so I kind of like how these chapters are dividing themselves. I don't know if it's going to continue this way, if we're going to get like an Enar focused chapter or whatever, but I kind of like how it's dividing itself and showing what each of the main characters are up to or what they're doing within this establishment now that like the settlement is kind of coming together. It's going into winter, so they're getting ready to prepare for their first winter scenario. Ironic that these chapters are coming out as winter is literally setting in right now for us. But anyways, let's talk about this chapter and what it means for Hild's character. So the basic setup of this chapter is that a bear shows up on the settlement. I'm not sure what type of bear it is, but it doesn't really matter. Regardless, bears are pretty freaking scary. I don't know if you've ever encountered a bear in the woods before while hiking or whatnot. It has hardly ever happened to me, only twice in my entire life, but one time it was actually it was pretty scary. It was just a black bear, but the bear I encountered had cubs with it too, and so I just kind of stood there and slowly backed away and just kind of made myself seem as non-threatening as possible. But the short story is you don't want a bear to show up anywhere that you are. And people are very shocked that a bear is here because, number one, the cold season is setting in, so it should be hibernating, but it seems like it's coming down for food. And Hild, of course, is your resident bear slayer and hunter, and so she's the one that kind of has a lot of knowledge about how to take care of this. Not that I'm sure anybody else, I'm sure there's other people here that are hunters, but Hild is probably the most qualified, and she decides to go in alone to take care of the situation because you don't want the bear showing back up or anybody to get hurt or injured or anything like that. And I know it's been a long time in the manga, but it's a good time to remember Hild's history, how she was taken in by the woodsman that trained her, that taught her how to hunt, that basically taught her everything that she knows, and he was eventually killed by a bear, in which Hild immediately took revenge on. Now, back in those chapters, Hild was, of course, reeling from the death of her father at the hands of Thorfinn, and then this is what kind of motivated her to train as hard as she did in hopes of one day finding and hunting down her father's killer. The old woodsman that took care of her, I think, is a really cool, underrated character, but he's really only in the flashback segment with Hild, so we don't get a lot of him. But he was talking about how nature works, this sort of idea of survival, and that's kind of what this chapter is about, whereas animals are just doing whatever they can to survive. They're not vindictive in the same way that humans are, that they're not coming after us specifically to kill us because of hatred or malice or whatever. Bears kill because they're either scared and they're trying to defend their cubs or themselves, or they're just so freaking hungry that they feel like they have to kill in order to eat. And so there's nothing about a bear in particular that's trying to hurt you. It's just nature doing itself, and we aren't able to communicate with them. And in a way that kind of parallels this lack of communication that has happened between the Norse people and the indigenous people, in that that's a huge barrier in order to understand each other, is communication. And a lot of hunting also has to deal with learning how an animal works, how an animal operates, what they do at particular times of the year, how they move, how to track them and everything. So you're learning these things about how their mind works, even though it's a lot different than yours. But anyways, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. Anyways, so Hild tracks the bear through the snow and then finds things that the bear's been eating, recognizes that the bear was moving into their territory to find food, and then finds a little hole in the side of the mountain where the bear sort of ran off to, supposedly its hibernation spot. And Hild sees that it did feed and that did go into the hole, and she figures, well, that's what the bear was attempting to do. It didn't come down to harm anybody, it was looking for food, and so she decides to not kill it. But she's too far away from the camp to go back, so she kind of camps out by herself underneath a tree. And we have this weird moment where she has this vision where this guy in a bear mask comes up to her. It's kind of funny looking, and at first you think it might be one of the indigenous people or something like that, but they immediately start talking the same language. And also, this person specifically mentions things about Hild. So you can tell that Hild is either having a dream or a vision or something like that. I don't think it's too weird, because, characters talk to themselves all the time, and you do have strange dreams, and I imagine she just spent her entire day tracking a bear, went to sleep. It wouldn't be too far out of the imagination to think that she's having a dream about like a bear person. I don't know. Dreams are weird, man. I don't even want to tell you guys my dreams. They may or may not involve bear masks, but they may also be a little bit sexier than this dream. But that's besides the point. The point is, the guy in the bear mask questions why she didn't kill the bear, and Hild responds the reason why. Like, they came in, they started tearing up the forest in order to cultivate it, so the bear is confused. Like, if it was normally his territory, normally there would be more food, now there's a little bit less, and so the bear is just branching out, trying to feed itself. It's not its fault. To which is very, very different to how Hild was reacting before in order to attack and get vengeance on the bear that killed the huntsman that raised her. And this chapter also brings up the question of, does time heal all wounds? Is that actually what's going on here? Because Hild is flashing back again to like how she's calmed down a bit from her sort of vengeance and against Thorfinn and everything, and how she's been talking to Karl, basically serving as Thorfinn's son. And he was saying that time heals all wounds. Are you ready to forgive him yet? Which kind of reflects back to a previous chapter where you sort of see the world of adults through the lens of a child and how simplistic a child makes it. And it makes you wonder, like, wait, is it actually that simplistic? Am I making it way more complicated than it needs to be? Or is it that complicated and the child doesn't understand? Truthfully, it's probably a little bit of both. But Hild is doing something interesting here, which I think is thinking towards the future more than she's thinking towards the past. More than holding on to that resentment and anger and vengeance, she's thinking, maybe when Karl gets older, I'll take him hunting. You know, so I think that this was meant to show, and I could be wrong, but I think it's meant to show that Hild is thinking towards the future, towards building, towards creating, towards making something better, rather than being destructive towards the past, which I think was the whole idea of this chapter, of not just showing her development that she like physically won't kill a bear. I think it's an internal thing where Hild is thinking more of potential greatness in the future than she is holding on to all the grudges of the past. And I think recognizing that, animals are just doing what they have to survive. There's nothing malicious about it. And also kind of looking at that next generation feeling. It's something there where she's healing. She's healing. She's overcoming her trauma. She's, and it's not about, does Thorfinn deserve to have like an eye for an eye and revenge and all that. It's about Hild internally growing as a person and healing from her past trauma, and something that she didn't understand when she was younger, when her mentor figure was saying, that the bear is just doing what it needs to do to survive, and that someday, I'm going to be a little bit slower. My vision's not as good. Like, everyone ages, everyone dies, and that death is also just part of nature. It's part of what happens. It's the cycle. Like, people, animals, whatever it is, we try to eat, we try to survive, we try to protect ourselves, defend ourselves, not die, not be killed by predators or enemies or whatever it is, and just keep moving forward for the continuation of our life cycle. So whether that's our future, our children's future, everything that Thorfinn is trying to build, he's building for the future. And I think that that's sort of what it was showing with Hild here. Now, considering this was a Hild-focused chapter, I'm totally cool with like the overall plot not developing more, because I like these character-focused chapters. It would be really interesting if they continued this moving forward and they had an Einar chapter and a Gudrid chapter, and they sort of just showed where everybody is at right now. I think that would be really interesting. Obviously, I miss the characters that aren't here. I would love to see what Canute and Thorkel are up to, or even Snake. Where is that guy? Anyways, but let me know what you guys think of Vinland Saga chapter 188. I really enjoyed this chapter. Tell me what you think about Hild's character and her character development, and leave all your thoughts, comments, theories about whatever's going to happen next down below, because in the next chapter preview, it says next chapter, the shaman's ritual begins. So I'm assuming the next chapter will probably actually focus on the indigenous people and something going on there, but who knows, it might involve one of our main characters also. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching this video. If you do like this and you like the Vinland Saga reviews, please give the video a thumbs up and interact with it, because these videos don't do as well as the others, so I'd like to push it in the algorithm a little bit more if possible. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Links down in the description below if you want to help support the channel, Patreon, merch store, all that stuff. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you next time.